Hi, everyone. Thank you again for joining us here today. My name is Bianca Matthew. I'm the Student Services Officer in the Office of Graduate Student Affairs. Here joining me today is Mariah Alston. She is our Graduate Assistant on the Admissions Team in the Office of Graduate Student Affairs, and she will be facilitating our panel.
Hi, it's nice to see you all here today. Today we have the pleasure of having some current students here to answer some questions for you. We will start with some questions that I have, and then we will open the floor for any questions that you have. So joining us today, we have Addison Lee, who is a master's student in data science, and she's from Chengdu, China. We have Chris Gulkapi, who's a master's student in civil engineering, focusing on construction engineering and management from Vauxhall, New Jersey. Preston Bradham is a master's student candidate in applied mathematics from Fort Worth, Texas. We have Romar Antrobus, who has completed his master's and is currently a PhD candidate in the biomedical engineering program. He focuses on the development of biomaterials for tissue engineering applications, and he's originally from Brooklyn, New York. And last but not least, we have Amal Al Abdul Karim, a master's student in computer science from Saudi Arabia. So we're gonna start off with our first question for the panel. What is it like being a graduate student in New York City and at Columbia?
So it's been exciting and a lot of opportunities, especially with Columbia. They always have social events and opportunities to network with other individuals and companies. So it's been a great opportunity to be here. Yeah, of course.
Thank you for sharing the positive note. And I'm going to give everybody a reality check. So it's going to be very busy, especially you guys are all enrolled in the engineering program. It's very rigorous, right? So if you're in a relationship, please prepare your partner that you're going to have a really busy 2 years or a year and a half. And then yourself be mentally prepared for the challenges as well.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to bounce off of that idea. You are going to be incredibly busy. And if you're not from a big city, it's a big shift of tone. So I'm from a small town, and coming here to one of the largest cities in the U.S., it's a huge game changer. And so I think it's something you have to get mentally prepared for when you move here.
So I'm from Brooklyn, New York. So I was born and raised in New York City, and I went to Lawrence University in the middle of the Midwest, which is a small city. And so it was refreshing coming back and doing graduate work in New York City. In comparison, it is a rigorous environment. However, I did enjoy being back into the motion of New York City and what it has available to us.
Yeah, being a graduate student at Columbia University will offer you a lot of great opportunities that you have to take advantage of. Networking, meeting recruiters, companies, it's a really good environment.
Awesome. So how many classes did you take your first semester? And what advice would you give to new students regarding registering for first semester classes?
So I took 5 courses in the fall and 5 courses now because I'm going to complete it in 1 year. So it is possible. It is a bit... I just want to emphasize that it is possible because it's something that I wasn't sure of if I wanted to do it a year and a half. But it is acceptable and something you can do, especially if you commit yourself to studying full-time. I don't know if you could do it part-time. But some suggestions I would recommend would be to prepare beforehand what kind of courses you want to take and what kind of track you want to involve yourself at Columbia, because at least for the civil department, you can take courses from a wide variety of electives and different departments as well. So it just depends on what you want to do and see for yourself at Columbia.
Thank you, Chris. I agree with you completely. And I have friends who are taking 5 classes for both semesters, and then they are able to graduate in a year, which is amazing, right? But again, how many of you come from a different discipline before this? Okay, great. Awesome. So I would say at least a third of the room, right? So I was an art consultant before I entered the data science engineering program. So it was a completely game changer for me, right? So I didn't know any Python before I enrolled in the program. So that being said, 5 classes is not my thing. I was taking 4 at the time. It was brutal. I lost 20 pounds. So if any of you are interested in that, we can talk afterwards. So I think if you come from a strong engineering background, taking 4 classes, even 5, it's probably possible, right? But if you're coming from a totally different discipline, and then you have to build up some groundwork for yourself, take that time. Don't just push yourself to do 4 or 5 if everybody else is doing it. And just be honest with yourself, because learning experience is also very important as well. You don't want to just get through the exams. You also want to really absorb and get the best out of your experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Chris. I took 5 classes the first semester and 5 classes this semester, so I'll graduate in 1 year too. Probably not the best idea. It was incredibly difficult because what I wanted to do, I wanted to go see if I wanted to get the PhD. But now that I know I do not want to go in the PhD, I want to go the industry route, I'm able to have the degree after 1 year. So I also saved a little bit of money, but it's not enough to where I would probably take 5 classes again. Because that first semester was incredibly difficult, going from undergrad to graduate work. It's just a whole different league. So the problem was with me taking 5 classes, I had to play catch up the entire semester. So I had no time to myself. So I think if I would have to redo it again, I would take less classes the first semester and then take more classes the third semester.
So I'm kind of a mixture between everyone. So as mentioned, I started off doing my master's. That was in 2017 in biomedical engineering, and my goal was just to finish a master's. Biomedical engineering on their website has a course organization list where you know what classes you need to take at what. And so I ended up taking 5 classes, both my first and second term, and then you do 1 more term after that. But within those class requirements, I was also volunteering in a lab. That gave me opportunity to make a relationship with a director of a lab, and that guided me towards future doctoral work, my PhD. So yeah, it's a combination of different things, but it's worth it. As mentioned,
Yeah.
I came from biochemistry, so going from one discipline to another was difficult, not as important as a gap as art history to data science, but biochemistry to engineering, I had no engineering principles, so I learned those principles and I had to absorb that knowledge instead of just taking tests. You really want to get your mindset in, this is your field, this is what you want to study.
I think the main thing is you have to figure out what you need specifically. I think we're just here to advise what we did, but it's definitely make sure you take into account what you need specifically, each individual. I think that's another key thing to take into account.
Yeah, one extra thing is that maybe some of your international students where you do have to take 4 courses and be a full-time student here, don't let that stress you out. Just make sure that you choose the right courses for you. Don't just choose what everyone else is choosing. Think and take your time choosing the courses. Attend the lectures in the first 2 weeks. They're really helpful. Even if you weren't registered for the class, you're allowed to attend the lecture and assess the course load yourself and see if this course is a better choice for you or you can choose something else.
And on that note, I've sitting in a couple of classes, even if it doesn't, even if you have time and you're interested in the class but it doesn't fit into your requirements, email the professor, ask if you can sit in the class. That's wonderful. I'm interested in immunology, so I have no immunology background, but I told the professor, hey, I would love to sit in this class, even though it's more time for classwork. It's worth it for your own education.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Auditing was like the best thing.
Awesome. So speaking of balancing school and life, are any of you members of student groups? And if so, can you please describe what group you're part of?
Yeah, so I'm part of the Engineering Graduate Student Council. I'm a department representative for my department. So it's a way for me to give back to my community and be a student liaison for the department. If there's any questions or concerns, I can address that at the organization and try to get feedback and support from my department.
So I am part of Women in Computer Science and Product Management Club. I really love those 2 clubs because they're very well organized, and especially for women in the room, they offer a lot of networking opportunities, a lot of workshops, a lot of like presentations to help you build not only your technical skills but also interpersonal skills. So I really love them. And also they invite industry leaders or women in the field to come back to campus and give you advice, mentorship. So that's great. And I think I will be continuing volunteering for them as well as my way of paying it back to the community. And the Product Management Club is some of my personal interest. There are a lot of different clubs on Columbia, and then they are very well organized by students, and then they provide you like a window to the industry if that's what you're interested in. So take advantage of that.
I'm personally not in a student organization body, but I know for a fact Columbia has numerous student bodies. If you want to get in one of anything, it's probably here. It's already made, and you can easily join. I think I just didn't have enough time, but I definitely would recommend looking into one.
Along that note, when I was in undergrad, I was very heavily involved in different organizations. I told myself coming to grad school, at least for the first 2 semesters, I wouldn't get that involved. So currently I'm not involved in on-campus events, but I've expanded my reach out to other organizations off campus. So I currently tutor math, SAT to high school students around New York City. So I do that bi-weekly, and so that's how I keep active with different organizations.
Awesome. So are there any events, research, or activities that you have participated in at Columbia that you specifically enjoyed?
Yeah, for me, I wanted to try to continue research, and Columbia has a lot of opportunities for that. So I joined a research program here at Columbia called the Global Leaders in Construction Management. It's by Professor O'Day, and it's been a really worthwhile experience. This past winter break, we went to Mumbai, India, to do research on construction trends in the industry as a whole. So it's been a great research opportunity for now.
Right. So for data science and computer science, there's an annual hackathon at the beginning of the semester. I loved it because it's a very fast, quick way to make friends, get to know your peers, and then also get to exercise your background knowledge, your coding skills in the first, I think, 2 or 3 weeks of the semester, right? When things haven't gotten like too busy yet. So I think that's a great event to participate. And there are tons of really great research projects on campus. Take advantage of that. It's amazing. There's a lot of very interesting topics going on. So yeah.
For the APAM department, we actually do a colloquium every week. So we bring in a guest lecturer, and he discusses what he's doing his research on. So I think that's one way to expand your knowledge on everything, because it's a wide range of amount, because for most people here, math is everything. Sorry, guys. So it's from all fields. They come speak here at Columbia for you. And so all you have to do is just make time for it once a week, and you'll learn a copious amount. Also, PDL, do you guys do PDL? Yeah, PDL is a great thing here, personal development leadership. They do classes here. I think there's a 5-class requirement, but they're like kind of like elective bases. So last week I took a wine 101 class, and so we had a sommelier or sommelier, I think. He came in here and he's like, yeah, rosés from red grapes with the skin out. And it's something interesting to learn from for networking skills and everything in between.
Also, in the computer science department, at the beginning of every semester, there's going to be a research fair where every professor and lab will be in the lounge, and they're going to introduce their research, and they're going to introduce the project that requires students this semester. I really encourage you to attend that and to identify any groups that you are interested in and talk to them.
Yeah, and to summarize everything, a lot of different departments have different research seminars every week. And so I'm in biomedical engineering, but sometimes I end up going to mechanical engineering to learn different topics and how they can connect. Another thing is I came to Columbia mainly for its entrepreneurial expertise and networking. So I have the opportunity to work in biomedical engineering, but I'm also active in pitch competitions and trying to win funding for different projects I'm on. So it's a very exciting way to get outside of your comfort zone and work on different projects.
I'm kind of glad you mentioned that. Every department has these colloquiums. So one of my buddies is a finance really person, but he's in applied math, so he's able to go to the business and finance colloquiums as well as other. I was able to go to think a MECED one a couple weeks ago. So you can go to any of these colloquiums if you want to learn the topic. Nothing is restricted anyway.
So we have a lot of countries and states represented, not only in the student body, but especially on the panel. So can you explain how you secured your housing arrangement, and if you have any advice for students moving to New York City and how to seek housing?
For me, I use the Off-Campus Columbia website. It's a really great application. It helped me like find a lot of apartments that were near Columbia, and they were pretty cheap as well. It's, I think, cheaper than like other websites that I was looking at. So that's how I secured my housing, and it's really convenient for me. It's really close to Columbia, and it's been good.
Yeah, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, so my security is my mom and dad. But yeah, I travel about an hour every day to get here. But that's good for my mental health and everything to get off campus. So
You just take the metro here?
yeah,
Is it direct route?
yeah. So I just take the 3 to the 1 train. So it's a pretty easy route, and then I work a lot uptown on the 168th campus. So you just take, well, the 1 is down this year, but you can take the A train all the way up.
Coming from Texas, I grew up on a big farm, literally, and so I kind of had this expectation I was going to get a big place. Yeah, lose that quickly. That's not a thing. So I think one of the main things is to keep in check is if you want to get a housing through Columbia, like on campus, they first go to undergrads, and then they go to PhD, and then they go to MS PhD, and then they go to MS. So even if you are the first one to apply ever, you'll be waitlisted, and you might not get one. So I think going off what Chris said earlier, Columbia offers off-campus housing. It's kind of like, what's it called, like a dating app type of thing for roommates. So you can go through what, like, who's looking for what in a roommate, stuff like that. And that's how I found 2 of my roommates right now, both really good friends. One's a stat PhD, another one is an IOR master's student. So I've never heard of them before, but I found them through the Columbia website, and it's been a great year with them so far.
Okay, so we're gonna open questions to the audience. If anyone has a question, then Bianca's gonna help us arrange this. Yeah, just speak loudly so we can all hear your question, please.
So I forgot which one, but one of you mentioned that you came to the conclusion that the PhD is not for you. What did you find in your master's that made you come to that conclusion, and generally what were you looking for in your master's to hopefully get the PhD?
That's honestly a great question. When I started applying for grad school, oh, yeah, absolutely. So Isaac over here was asking why I chose not to go into my PhD after I completed my master's degree. And I honestly think that's a great opinion, or a great question, because when I started applying for grad school, I applied both PhDs and masters, and I got offers from both PhD and masters. But the main thing I was unsure of, that I wanted to go directly into PhD. And so from going to Columbia, I was able to start off with a master's. And then after I was able to get a master's, then I kind of figured I'd get a better idea of what I wanted. And because I came straight from undergrad to my master's, personally for me, I'm kind of getting burnt out of classes. And so because I was taking 5 classes each semester, which I recommended not to do, that's just the main reason, I think, because I still have a passion for academia and furthering my mathematics knowledge. But I think because I was taking too many classes, that's why I didn't want to do it. However, I'm still keeping my options open. So that's why when I took the job I'm doing now in August, I'd say after like a couple years, I then decide if I want to come back. If that answers your question. Okay.
Can I add on to that?
Yes, go ahead.
So once you get over that hump, so I also took 5 classes.
Yeah.
Once you get over that hump, it's amazing. And to persuade you more to go into PhD. But I'm only taking 1 class right now, and the rest of everything I'm doing is just research. So you get to really dive deeper into the topic you're looking at. And so
Yeah, it's not class-based, it's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big thing. Is that something, because I have multiple interests, I couldn't find one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to find tons of things I wanted to do. So that was another downside to that.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your experience. One of you mentioned about entrepreneurship opportunities at Columbia. Could you please mention more examples about that? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat the question.
cool.
So the question was about internship opportunities at Columbia.
Entrepreneurship.
Oh, entrepreneurship? Okay.
So I don't know how much I can speak upon it, but there are many pitch competitions, I think mainly in the fall semester. And so you have the opportunity to either apply for the competition using your own project or a project from classes, or even alumni that are, I think, 5 years graduated past, they can come back and be a part of the competition. And so it's really like different rounds of pitching to consultants or to panelists. But really, I think Columbia has a wide range of different competitions that can be for specific departments. So I'm particularly in BME. I'm not sure about MECI and everything else, but you can apply rigorously in order to get funding for different things. So yeah, you can really start from an idea straight to product in a matter of a semester. For me, I took a class called Biodesign. That class taught you how to turn your idea into a product. And so we gained $10,000 in funding by doing a pitch competition, and now that's being supported to create and generate and manufacture later on. So, yeah.
Also, some of the departments also offer like entrepreneurship courses. So like the civil department, like right now in the spring, they usually offer an entrepreneurship course. So I'm taking that now. So it also gives you ideas and like ways to think about like doing startups and like what that would be like. So.
You guys talked about how the course load can be kind of a crush. I mean, like, how much do you sleep every night? Like, is it more that it's like during the day, it's just like your social life gets eaten up, or is it at the point where you're working a lot of late nights during much of the semester?
So the question is, how do they balance class, work, and sleep?
What's your background?
Math and media,
And what are you studying?
data science.
Okay, cool. So I think you're off at a good start because a lot of the machine learning classes have a lot of math, which is a piece of cake for you, right? So maybe for you it's just sacrifice some social life. I know people who come from very strong, like a math or a stats background for our program. They are just, living the best lives. So, do not worry too much about it. I just, what I shared my experience was because I was coming from a totally different field, right? So just have a realistic assessment of your background, of your technical skills. Do you know Python? A little bit. So now it's April. You have 5 months to be really good with it. And then if you use the summer to be really good at Python, then you're going to have a very enjoyable first semester.
I think it just depends on the department that you're in, and like she mentioned, like your background. For myself, it's been pretty manageable. Just like an undergrad, like when midterms come up around and like finals and projects, that's when you have to like kind of like put a bit more effort in. So then you might lose a little bit more sleep, but typically throughout the semesters, I've been pretty good about it. So it hasn't been too bad.
Okay. Yes.
I guess my field's computer science, but are there options to continue from the master's program directly into the PhD at Columbia? So I know
Yeah, I don't know exactly about computer science, but there are different programs. And so when I enrolled in Columbia, I was on strictly master's. However, there are master's to PhD programs, and then there are PhD programs. So I've transitioned from master's to PhD. And that system kind of looked like, I built that relationship in my first semester at Columbia with my director of my lab. And so I've established a relationship, and I was able to say, I'm interested in industry. However, I'm also interested in research. So I mentioned this to my PI, my personal investigator, and she mentioned that I can also apply for this program. And so building that relationship is very key. I know before I was in your shoes, when I was applying for master's programs, I even emailed the people I wanted to work with. And so establishing a relationship easily or quickly as possible allows you to build network and get your foot in the door. I know if you're looking into a lab, within the first couple weeks, at least for BME, they do a lab social where you can get to know different people in different labs. And so there's a little bit of competition, so getting your name in the door as quick as possible lets the PI know and the graduate students know that this person should be on their radar. And so I think that was the main thing that really got me towards master's to PhD, so you can build that relationship.
Yeah, I kind of want to expand on that. Honestly, if the main thing, because applied math, you can do research even if you're master's students under professors. And so if you start doing research under one professor and the next semester you do it again, then you're like, hey, I want to do a PhD route. Then that professor can go to the head of the chair and he's like, I think this guy is a great fit. So then you just slide you right.
Yeah, so that's kind of the one system that can happen.
Yeah.
And I think I found it easier to say, you're already taking 5 courses as a master's student and you still want to do lab work. You don't have to take it for credit. Do volunteering. That's a way easier way. That's a great way for the PI to say, well, this is free help. Of course, I will. That isn't, you don't want to say it from your perspective, free help, but it's a way to show your interest and how you want to help the PI in their work.
I guess as you were answering this question, it kind of leads into what I was going to ask. Could you speak a little bit about your engagement with faculty, beyond just showing up to their lectures for class? Like, what is that relationship like with faculty in your department outside the classroom?
Oh, I mean, one of my academic advisors, he used to work at UT, so he's from Texas, and we discussed barbecue on a bi-weekly basis. So I think we found a new barbecue place in Brooklyn, and I think we're gonna go try that out soon. Is that? I mean, it just depends on the professor. I mean, if one professor does triathlons, you do the triathlon. You can do stuff outside of what you're studying, and then once you find outside studying, you can talk about what he studies, and then you find out he studies the same thing you do. So it's kind of just like building that bond, building a network of people that you know.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit to your question. So I took a class with business school, and then I think that's something that every engineer could consider at some point, because when you're in the engineering department, everybody you met is having an engineering mindset, right? But then if you're in a business school, and then it's like very diverse, everyone have come from like a really interesting different background. You're gonna meet artists, musicians, entrepreneurs. So that really opens your mind and then to allow you to see a bigger world out there. So that class I took really made me appreciate my identity as an engineer as well as everybody else, out there in the world. And then the business school professors are very different from engineering professors, engineering professors they're mostly brilliant and maybe, I don't want to say the stereotypical impression, but that business professor I had, he is an angel investor himself. He opened up his whole portfolio to me, say that if you're interested in working in any of those companies, pick them, and then I will connect you to them. So I think show your passion and interest in the subject, and then do well in the class, and then it's the first step to build a relationship with the professor, and then from there you can develop more like a personal relationship with them.
Yeah.
No, so to repeat what you said, you're asking if you're restricted to your specific school for research. To answer that, absolutely not. One of my best friends, who I found here at Columbia, he's doing research in the finance department. He's getting his master's in applied math, and he's, I think I said this earlier, huge in the finance game. He finances, I guess is the thing to that. But he reached out to the professor he found a paper from. He's like, I'd love to expand on your research. Can I work with you? The professor's like, well, let me see what you got. So he was able to demonstrate that he knows the topic. He can code what she wrote out on paper, and that's why he's still there. So if you have the skills, you can do anything you want.
Any other questions? Yes. So is the question if they've received funding, and if not, how are they paying? How do they justify paying?
Paying for tuition?
For tuition, correct? Yes.
Oh, okay. So, well, I'm going to share something very personal with you guys, granted that we just met. So I come from an art history background, right? I was an art consultant for one of the really prestigious international gallery for 2 years. My salary was $60,000, that's it, right? But then after my 2 years, I just recently got an offer which almost doubled my previous salary. So I think you can make your investment back very quickly if you do well in your program. And also, don't focus only on the financial side, because this is a really valuable life experience for you to push yourself to be your personal best, to define who you are. So there's a lot. I think it's very easy to justify that.
Yeah, I think I had one of the hardest times justifying it because I got, when I applied to PhD school, I had a full offer. So everything was paid for, including a stipend. And then here, I wasn't offered anything. And so, I'm not blaming anyone here in that room. So I think that was the main thing I justified going off to that, is like, what do you think this is value for? So I think in a couple years, this will just exceedingly surpass any degree I could have gotten. Because one is from Columbia, another one is because of everything I've learned, and then the third one is because of my network here. And because everything has grown so tremendously, honestly think you can't put a price tag on this.
There are also like fellowship opportunities that you can look up even now. Start applying, and hopefully they can also help you fund your education here. So it's ways that you can just look around creatively, even get like jobs on campus as well. So it's very possible to figure out ways to fund your education.
So,
Absolutely.
along those lines, finding side gigs or things like that. I had to take out loans for masters. I think it's incredibly hard to find funding for masters, but transitioning to PhD, I am now fully funded. I get a stipend, so the investment will come back in the future. It's worth it.
Yes.
So is the question like, how do we treat each other? Right? Is that correct? So I'm from APAM. I'm an applied mathematician. I had 13 people in my department. 10 of them were international and 3 were domestic. I quickly started talking to everyone. Like, what's your background? I would say the only reason you guys got into here is because you guys are the best of the best. And so you're coming from your undergrad to a whole nother league. Everyone here is just like you. So that can either inspire you or that can kind of just like make you sad, I guess. But I honestly think because everyone's so smart here, it drives each other to become smarter as a team, like a collective group. You're not hoping anyone just like does a terrible job in the exam or something like that. You're trying to raise each other up. I think the student body is collectively helping each other as best as they can. I know just from my group of friends that I have, we always help each other because we have to take the core courses together. We're always like, hey, I missed lecture like this. What happened then? And everyone's like, oh, I got notes. It's very supportive climate.
I'd like to add on that, speak for data science. I think it's your choice to choose who you want to hang out with and be friends with, right? So you're in an environment, everybody is ultra competitive and ambitious and driven, have high standards for themselves, which is nothing wrong with that, right? but at the same time, everybody express themselves slightly differently. So I know people who openly say, oh, I only want to work for these companies and I want the best of best for myself, right? If you find that create a negative emotions for yourself, maybe this is not the right person for you to be friends with. And you're going to find someone who are like, okay, I'm also very hardworking, I'm also very driven, but I just, express myself different ways. So I think just navigate, find your club, find your tribe, and then you'll be fine. Yeah.
So we have time for about 2 or 3 more questions. Yes.
So obviously, Columbia is like a different standard in terms of academics, kind of touched upon that a little bit. I am not coming from an Ivy League background, and I was just wondering how you transition into the classes, and if your grades suffer, or like kind of just academics wise.
Yeah, you can go. Okay, I'm from Texas Tech. Our logo is, if you can't get your grades up, get your guns up. So I went to Texas Tech, and I got my guns up. So I took undergrad, and I did well at it. And I applied here, and I persuaded them to let me in. I don't think my GPA suffered that much because I'm not really focused on my GPA. I'm more focused on what I'm learning here because that's what I'm paying for, is to enhance my knowledge, not just some GPA. It's from what I learned, and then also, you're at Columbia, and it's really cool.
So I'm not from an Ivy undergrad background either. I went to Rutgers, and funny story, one day I was on the train, and then the person was like, oh, where do you go to school? I was like, oh, I go to Columbia now. He said, oh, that's great. And then I was like, he was like, where did you go to undergrad? I was like, I went to Rutgers. And have you guys heard of Rutgers? It's a state university. Okay, great, cool. So this guy was like, oh, how do you make that transition, right, from Rutgers to Columbia? I was a little bit, offended, seriously. Because, number one, I think you define who you are, not a school tag, right? It's great that you have a Columbia stamp on you now, but deep down in the core is who you believe who you are or what your worth is, right? So that doesn't change no matter where you go. And I think, yes, society will look at us probably a little bit differently, like if we have a tag. But deep down, we have a lot of people who didn't come from like a famous or Ivy school, and then they still do great things in the world. So don't let that limit yourself. And also, the second point was before the panel, actually, Romar and I were talking about this, is that everybody at some point feel a little bit of imposter syndrome, which is totally normal, right? It's because you hold high standards to yourself, you have high expectations, maybe your family, right? But don't let that beat you down, okay? This is the greatest challenge you're gonna have up to this point of your life. Embrace it, and then you're gonna make the best out of it. I went to Rutgers, New Brunswick.
I went to Lehigh University in Pennsylvania.
Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Texas Tech University. We're going to beat Michigan State, by the way.
King Saud University, Saudi Arabia. So to answer your question, my university it ranks like below 300 in world rankings, but I still feel like coming here, being with all of these great students and the supportive student body, I didn't suffer much from that. And I'm satisfied with my GPA, I'm satisfied with my courses and everything.
Okay, any more last questions? Yes.
Was your question, what's our opinion about working part-time? Okay. I think it depends on where you are with your own personal goals, right? So first year for me, transition from art to data science, it was a lot of working, really laying my technical foundation. At the time, I went on all the kind of interviews with my peers because everybody else is doing it, right? So I feel the stress and pressure to do it. But that was a bad mistake because they already had everything that they need to get that job, but I didn't. So I quickly realized that, and I adjusted my strategy. So I need to focus on my academics for the first year. And then I used the whole summer. So long story short, the second year, yes, and then I found an internship along with my semester. And then that was really helpful. And that was exactly, I was applying what I learned to industry, make a close connection. So Again, I think it's different for everyone. Some people I know they started working part-time during their program, taking 4 classes or even 5 classes, but for me, it's just not realistic. So I think using this time before September, right, to really build your foundation, really know where you are and what do you want to get out of this program, where is your dream job, what is your dream company. Think about these questions, have a clear goal, and then assess your technical and other business abilities, and then see whether that's realistic for you to do that. And then maybe for the first semester, just enjoy graduate student life. Yeah.
I think I only know one person that's working part-time right now, and I haven't seen him in a couple weeks. It's going to be a lot, even with 15 hours, because I know he works remotely on Fridays. So that means he just stays at home on Fridays. But because he has to submit stuff on Fridays, he has to work on Monday, Tuesday. But because he's also taking 12 hours, he has to do Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday. And then Thursday's his free day, but Thursday he has like 3 classes. So, I mean, just take that as you will. It's going to be a lot of time on you.
Okay, so we're coming towards the end of our time, so I have one last question for the panelists. Is there anything you wish you had known or wish you had done prior to enrolling at Columbia?
I guess the grad school experience goes really fast. I'm still in shock that I'm almost done. I mean, I feel like I just was at this dinner, or this lunch a while ago. So I think some tips would be just to prepare yourself really, really well. Like she mentioned, have your dream job, have your dream goal, have your mental status set up for this grad school experience, and just be ready for it. It's exciting, a lot of opportunities, and just make sure you're going out there and taking full advantage of it.
For the people interested in lab work and research, one thing I did do before I applied was reach out to different directors or labs that I was interested in working in. The one thing I wish I did do was I didn't get any responses from the directors, put it that way, because they're always busy. So the people that you can get responses from are the graduate students. And so I wish I reached out to the graduate students to understand what type of work they're doing, have a conversation with them, possibly even, since I'm from New York, I could have met with them personally. So I wish I made that further one-step connection in order to understand the climate at Columbia and within certain labs.
I want to share quickly about one particular thing about coding language. So I believe everybody here is going to code in your program. And then when I was matriculated, I asked, I started from Java. Is that enough or is that good? And I was like, yeah, sure, totally. If you know one language, you can easily pick up another one. I don't think that's true, or at least it takes me a while, right? So while you have this 3-4 months before September, really understand what the main coding language that your program requires you to use. If it's Python, if it's R, if it's anything, C++, anything else, right? Just get familiarized with that main language that you're going to be using. That will be very helpful.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a quick comment about that. Please do that. I was a pure mathematician and a theoretical astrophysicist. I did no coding, and I came here. It's a lot of coding. So make sure you do coding. I think one thing I wish I did earlier was decide on what electives I wanted each semester. So I think one of the problems was, you can take any elective you want. It just has to be an approved elective. And so I had so many classes I wanted to take, I couldn't actually find a schedule that fit my core courses with the electives I wanted to take. So I wish I planned earlier for each elective I wanted to take, because you only have 2 weeks to find your classes, and 2 weeks seems like a long time, but it's not. So make sure you look at the classes you want to take paired with your core courses first.
Yeah, I was going to emphasize on that. Read your program and know your courses. Decide what courses you want to take in your first semester. It's going to make your life easier.
It really will.
Okay, so I just want to thank our panelists. We give them a round of applause for their time.